not like he was going to the nearest taco stand and getting a plastic spoon. This dude was coming prepared.
Johnny Depp's doing BYOS out in the park.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
I'm doing everything I can. And stop calling me Shirley.
The center has to be at least 3 times bigger than this.
All right, it's another edition of Sincerely Unqualified. I'm Kevin. As always, we have Winnie, the greatest co-host known to man. Today, we are going to be doing, it's not that true, 21 and 22 Jump Street. We got a twofer for you. You know, one of the only successful sequels in comedy movie history, maybe? What do you think?
I mean, absolutely. I don't know of that many off the top of my head. The only one I can think of is 21 and 22 Jump Street. That may be because they're, numbers in order and they're easy to remember. But other than that, they're just two good movies standing alone. Standing on their own, that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's see, because we do have one coming out that also has a pretty good name when you talk about numbers for sequels, coming to America. Not the word, but the number.
I see what they did there. Yeah, and I like when they take 30 years to make the sequel, just so every generation gets their chance. It's like Nemo.
Of course.
They just like to take their time, and they're like, every child should get to experience coming to America again.
I don't know. I have no problem with it. I hope it's really good. So
I hope so too. I'm
sure we'll be doing it. Yeah, a trailer came out recently. I'm assuming we'll be doing a podcast episode on the original Coming to America to get you guys geared up beforehand. Not coming out yet. Before we get into the episode, though, we'll talk some current events. So, I don't know if anything like really significant happened in your weekend.
How long have you been planning that? How long have you been planning that? You're trying to do it so nonchalantly. And you didn't even pick a hat that matched your outfit. You picked one to just shove it in my face.
Yep. Because I've worn this on the podcast before, and you've mentioned, so you knew it was an Eagles hat.
I knew it, yeah.
Pretty obvious. So I wanted to get the one that I knew you would, for people just listening, I just tossed on an Eagles hat. So I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Winnie is a New York Giants fan. If you don't like football, that's all right. We'll fill you in quick. Basically, the Eagles took out their starting quarterback when they weren't probably supposed to. They lose the game, and it keeps Winnie's team, the New York Football Giants, out of the playoffs. Sweet serendipity. The Washington football team is the NFC East champion.
But what do you have to gain from it? Like, why are you so excited? Do you guys just dislike us so much?
No, I don't dislike you that much. If the Cowboys won, I would be ecstatic that we did this. I wanted to keep the Cowboys specifically out of the playoffs. Giants, whatever. I just think it's funny because I just wanted you to stay out because it made you upset, and that makes me happy for reasons I can't quite explain.
Okay, so I was slightly sympathetic for you last night for about a second, and then I remembered who you were. So I was watching the Eagles play football, and it drained my soul. It literally took the life out of me. And I was like, I can't imagine being a part of a fan base who had their shining year in 2018 and is not going to again. There's going to be a Coming to America 3 before the next time the Eagles get a Super Bowl.
It's going to be 2057. Look, what I think, and here's a take that I kind of just started developing in my head. I think somewhere around the fourth quarter, someone pulled out a phone. They saw Tom Segura's injury. They saw him go up for a dunk and just half of his body, it kind of turned into the S that people used to draw in middle school. I think someone showed that to Doug Peterson. And when that happens, when you see things like that, you get perspective. You see people get injured. Who knows what's going to happen? That could happen to the future of your franchise, who you're not sure is actually the future of your franchise because you just paid someone a bunch of money. So who knows if he's actually your quarterback, but he could get injured. This is a smart decision. That's why he wrote a book the season that he won the Super Bowl.
Okay. I think that text was actually from, Chase Young. I think it was to Doug Peterson and it was Tom Segura and it said, "This you," and then that was it. And I think that there was a low-key threat from Chase Young to Doug Peterson, like, what's up. So they kind of let it by. And Doug Peterson was like, "I was going to do it anyways, dude. You don't have to tell me." He's like, "I was going to put him in." I'm surprised he didn't start Sudfeld. I'm surprised he didn't start the dude. That guy, he had the posture of somebody who was working checkout to stack the high shelves. Like, that'd be like if you put Kevin into an NFL game and just said, "Do it." And he's like, "I don't know.
I did play not all 4 years in high school, so all
right, stop.
Let's get into
you're soaking in my sorrows. Let's just jump into the movies.
Yeah, we got a lot to get through. Just wanted to mention it. Just wanted everyone to know when he had a rough weekend. So let's go easy on him. He might be a little off this pod. But before we get into it, we've done the last few episodes. Let's shout out our guys over at workedsneakers.com. That's worked with an ED at the end, as in the past tense. Sneakers.com. You know how to spell sneakers. I honestly, let's think this. Jonah Hill probably be very interested in worksneakers.com. Remember that picture of him when he was, dropping the coffee, but wasn't actually dropping the coffee? Fantastic outfit.
He looked so good, and I'm sure that all of that stuff, if you wanted to dress as well as, if not better than Jonah Hill, you could probably find that entire outfit and more on Work Sneakers.
Ooh, we should do a collection. That should be a collab. Yeah. The collection of the picture where Jonah Hill is dropping the Starbucks cup.
That's a really succinct name for the collection. I think that's actually a real,
it's a working title.
Off the tongue. Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
But the Jonah Hill almost dropping coffee collection, it actually kind of flows. But on worksneakers.com, follow them on social, follow them on Instagram. They're on Twitter, probably not Facebook because it's not a mom group for your neighborhood.
Yeah. We're not on Facebook either. Although technically we are on Facebook, not bothering with that. Although what we do want to say about social, definitely check out Work Sneakers. There's handles will be in the description. The website will be in the description. We also want you guys subscribe to us on YouTube, like all of our stuff, review us, rate us, do all the good stuff for us. But definitely, if you like this podcast, please tell your friends. We really want to start growing, and that's the best way to do that with podcasts. Not too many people want to sit down and listen to a full podcast about movies. But if you say, "Hey, maybe you should," your friends are more likely to do it. So
we appreciate it all. We love everybody who's given us a chance, and we hope that keeps going.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I was going to say about Facebook is we do want to start interacting with people. Like we have followers, but we want people to, if you're listening to this, if we want it to be an ongoing conversation, we want to talk to everyone. We want to know where you guys are at with movies, what we haven't done, what you like about the podcast, what you don't like about the podcast, everything. So feel free to DM us. Maybe we'll start workshopping some stuff to make that better. But
yeah,
other than that, I think that we can probably.
He can take criticism. Send anything our way, and we'll do what we can.
Got thick skin.
Let's jump into him. Let's
get into it.
Get it. That's part of the title. All right.
Sorry for everybody who
turned off the podcast. Yep. Sorry for everybody who just switched it off. Thank you for giving us a chance and ruined. So let's jump into
ruined. Let's get into it. 21 Jump Street to start out. The first one. So obviously we have source material here. It used to be a TV series. Richard Grieco, Johnny Depp, drama, but we turned it. Jonah Hill and company turned it into a fantastic comedy movie. So Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were the directors. It was their first live action movie, and let's give it away here, Winnie. I think it turned out pretty well.
I gotta agree with you. I think, having no base in coming from the TV show, it was out before we were born. So it's not like
Yeah.
we were going to grow up watching this show with Johnny Depp.
Probably
But
something to note that we haven't actually watched the TV show, but
yeah,
what I heard from Rob Riggle in an interview is that a lot of people who watched the TV show were happy with it, even though it was different.
look, I was happy with the idea itself, whether it was something or not, because you have to take into account, like, there's a lot of movies that base their plots and everything that they do off of either a TV show, an older version of the movie, a newer TV show, things like that, and they destroy it. They completely ruin it. But with
Yes.
this, you could destroy a franchise. But with this, it's such a different spin, and it was so with the times where it's self-aware and kind of making fun of itself for being a reboot in a way, and kind of taking that really comedic spin to an action movie. There's been a few action movies that are, soul comedies. I mean, we had the other guys, which was more action driven, but this
First
is
episode.
a real, just like, yeah, absolutely. And this one it did a great job of maintaining both and really just hammering in the comedy, which was incredible.
Yeah. I was going to push back a little and say I would think that the other guys was the same, but 21 and 22 Jump Street, for that matter, definitely are very heavy on the action. They have legitimate action sequences that could belong in a true action movie, but everything else is just pure comedy. And also there's comedy worked into those action scenes, which is what I think makes this movie as good as it is and unique, because when you have people fighting and shooting at each other, and then you have this like lovers quarrel, that's just laced with lines, laced with all this funny stuff. It's tough to do, and this movie does it extremely well.
I think that they especially did something well where it's like, look, if you're in a situation that's getting a little heated, like if you're in the car chase scene and you're driving a car away, you're getting chased, everything, you're not going to be those classic action heroes, especially these two guys who we learned are just kind of like the worst cops in the entire world. Like
they're not great.
On bike patrol. They're telling a kid not to throw bread into the water, and he's still doing it. And I mean, they're the worst cops of all time. If they're in this first car chase, it's like 3-year-old. They're like, what, you feel like a big man now? You did it? It's just, they're in this car chase. They're going to be acting like normal people, where they're not saying these actiony things like, all right, pull off here, blah, blah, blah. They're being real. They're making like these crazy things, which we think are hilarious. But I mean, me or you, if we're in a car chase like that, we're going to be saying, cursing just as much, doing all that stupid shit that they're doing throughout.
Yeah. A lot of profanity in these movies. And I think that it helps it out, though, because it makes it feel more real. When you're watching an action movie, nothing about it feels real, and it's not supposed to. That's okay. Yeah. In comedies, that's what makes comedies funnier, is that it makes these badass people, like, look at Channing Tatum. Not many people can relate to Channing Tatum. You can't feel like, I'm gonna be this action star who's big, tall, strong, good looking. But when it's real, you can relate to them. And something else that this movie does is I think it plays on everyone's mind, in that it really is about, okay, what if we go back to high school and try to reinvent the way we lived? What if we did some things differently? Because I don't care how good or bad, well, obviously bad, you would want it to be different, but how good of an experience you had in high school, there are always things that you can look back on and be like, what if I did that differently? What if I changed the way I did? Even just one event that you feel like shaped something. And that's what the crux of this movie was. And that's kind of what they wanted to accomplish, as, to give it some depth.
Yeah. And I like that, where they had such different high school experiences. Like, obviously Channing Tatum was the jock with the long hair who was playing football. I'm assuming it was like the early 2000s when this was taking place.
I think it was 2005, they said.
Yeah. So it's 2005. They have the long hair, and then you see Jonah Hill come in, who's just this nerd with still braces and everything, like polar opposites of the high school experience. And then seeing them come in, I love that they switch the identities, in the principal's office First of all, hilarious that they couldn't remember their names. Like Channing Tatum couldn't remember which one
He
was.
just refused to. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it worked out so well because it's showing that, you can kind of change it if you're given the second chance, and that what happened last time doesn't have to happen this time. I mean, even for Channing Tatum, who was a jock, didn't really care about school, to then go in and like learn how to make a bomb, I guess, out of alcohol and some batteries. It's kind of cool. Get in with the chemistry nerds. It's even if you're having a bad time, like it seems you would think the nerds are in high school, you can still kind of spin it and see that it's actually a pretty good time.
Yeah. And that, I think the funny thing is that they both went different extremes. Like, so they both did the exact opposite. But in terms of what the other, I guess, commentary that the directors and the creators were trying to make was that cool kids now in high school look a lot differently than cool kids did back then. So I think you can take a look at Channing Tatum's character, and he was the quintessential just jock turned into quintessential nerd. Those stereotypes haven't really changed. But Jonah Hill's character, he was the dork, but he doesn't turn into some sports loving jock. He turns into what is now a cool kid. And that is something that is extremely different. It's that Dave Franco character. I think that they literally in a line, they call it out like to be environmentally friendly, tolerant, and I'm kind of blanking on the other one, but you have
socially conscious or something, just like
something like that. Just like, this whole thing. It's funny seeing like, it doesn't exactly make like this X. Like you don't go from stereotype to stereotype. Something changes along the way.
Yeah, it's almost like perpendicular lines, because Jonah Hill doesn't change so much. He kind of just stays the same a little bit and gets into that group because of who he is now. And then the other line is coming across where it's just Channing Tatum, who thought he was here, the cool kid, even the one strap thing where he's like, you got a one strap. I can't be seen with you wearing two straps. Nobody's one strapping. They take that insane car, drive it. One of the first lines where you see this, how this is kind of going to go, is where Dave Franco's like, what does that thing get? Like 10 miles to the gallon? He's like, probably 7.
Yeah. That's Dave Franco's first line. Yeah. That is another very interesting thing to point out, is that, when you're the person watching it, when we all project ourselves onto movies. That's what makes them fun. So you could either be Channing Tatum and be like, oh, what if I did it completely opposite? Or you could be Jonah Hill and be like, well, I mean, if I was only born 10 years after, I would have been a cool guy and done the same exact thing, I think it's definitely a cool way to have this movie based on a TV show progress. I think that was insanely well done.
Yeah. And I feel like they definitely, I think I heard somewhere they might have, interviewed high school kids and everything to see what the deal was now, just to kind of have more insights into everything, and gotten the feedback of what's cool, what's not, and seeing where they need to go with kind of the high school kids. And it played into it perfectly with, the nerd. If I was only, I think Jonah Hill directly says, like, if I was born 10 years later, I'd be the coolest kid on the fucking planet. It was just, I love that. And I love seeing, especially when Channing Tatum thinks he's going to come in and run shit. When he walks up, and they're looking at the groups of kids, and then he passes one. He goes, I don't know what the fuck they are.
They're walking through, like, what are those? Like, he goes, oh, those are the goths. Like, that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
What are those? It's just a bunch of like hipsters.
Yeah. It's like, what are those? I don't know. But yeah, just seeing the modern high school was kind of awesome. And, I think they framed it really well for 27-year-olds. They were like 27, right?
Yes.
Like 25.
A little older, actually. Like, yeah. So that's the other thing is, obviously there is an inherent problem here that they're old.
That was the rule.
They're not. Yeah. They're not high school age, but like, they were supposed to be. So something that I realized, and just before we go into Inexclusive exclusives here. I was thinking, okay, so how old is Channing Tatum compared to some of these people that are supposed to be so much older than him? Because before we even get a joke about how old they are, we're introduced to Ellie Kemper as his science teacher, Channing Tatum's science teacher, and Jake Johnson as both of their principals. So Jonah Hill is 3 years younger than Channing Tatum. So we're going to use Channing Tatum as that. Well, they also pretty much only poke fun at Channing Tatum. Yeah.
Yeah. In this
Channing
way,
Tatum's going to be our benchmark. So he is 40 years old. Ellie Kemper is actually the same age.
Wait. Channing Tatum's 40 years old now? Okay, cool.
Yes, now. Not at the time, sorry.
I was going to say at the time, that would be a little fucking crazy.
No, yeah, he's 40 now.
Okay.
So Ellie Kemper is actually the same age, and Jake Johnson, the principal, is 2 years older. So
Ellie Kemper is 40 years old?
Yeah.
No way. She looks great.
Well, yeah. I mean, all of them do.
I'm just, not to say that the other ones look older, but it's funny how that's insane how they poke fun and they just keep making fun of Channing Tatum for looking old. Then they have these great actors who are in the next one as well, the nerds, who literally look like they're 17 or 18. I'm not sure exactly how old the actors were at the time, but to just see the comparison of like Channing Tatum, the fully grown person, and he's insanely huge, does his own stunts, next to a legitimate, probably 17, 18-year-old kid, is wild.
I really I think they're probably a little older. I think that those kids were probably like, early mid-20s probably.
Yeah, but to even see that kind of comparison is almost in itself making fun of other movies where, older people play high schoolers, where it's just like, you really think you're getting away with something here?
Yeah, there's stuff that goes viral every now and then, specifically about how old people were in Greece. And I just saw another tweet. And the fact that they tried to pass people in Greece off as 18-year-olds is egregious. It's offensive. Like, you think that we are so dumb, or just people didn't care back then. But I mean, it's ridiculous. Just insane.
Look, there's that one guy in Greece. And you know who I'm talking about if you watch
that's who I'm talking about.
The one
picture
guy
I saw.
Yeah. He's
greasy.
76 years old. He is legitimately a grandfather. And
During
they're like,
filming.
you're going to play an 18-year-old. Yeah, during filming. He's 96 now. He knows his great-grandkids. That
adds up. Yeah, Grease was made in the year 2000. Everyone knows that. So he's 96 now.
I don't understand how even that, the casting, whether it was an early movie or not enough budget or anything, how did that happen? How?
It's egregious. That's all I can say. It's egregious.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's
you're correct.
Move on to Inexclusive exclusives for 21 Jump Street here, though, because I have a feeling we're going to take a little longer on 22 Jump Street when we're talking about the similarities and everything.
Yeah.
So here's the facts section for 21 Jump Street. I'm going to start it out because somehow he went unmentioned when we were talking through this. And this is, they are cops. They're undercover. And so they go through this organization called Jump Street. And the captain that's in charge of all these cops, he wrote the song, or he performed the song Fuck the Police with NWA. So Ice Cube is the captain. We'll talk about him later. I can guarantee that. So Jonah Hill actually wrote the part of him with Ice Cube in mind. So Jonah Hill, at the conception of this character, wanted it to be Ice Cube, and it's because he was such a huge fan of him throughout his entire childhood. So even Channing Tatum was saying how funny it was just looking at him interact with Ice Cube, because I don't care if you're Jonah Hill, if you have a childhood hero, you're going to kind of like gush about him. So Jonah Hill was asking him all these questions about his past music career during filming and all this kind of stuff. And it ended up being a fantastic character again. Well, for those who are familiar with the podcast, we talk about our favorites at the end of the podcast. So that's why we always catch ourselves saying, we'll talk about them later.
We'll talk about them later.
Yeah.
No, I think he was such. I don't know who could have played this role in both movies much better, if anyone. I mean, number
I'll tell you though, it could have been J.K. Simmons. So
There
J.K.
he
Simmons
is.
actually admitted on the Howard Stern show that he was considered for Ice Cube's role, but scheduling conflicts kind of just happened.
Too many
And
farmers commercials.
it probably was. Yeah.
Probably was
He's
a
all about that
farmers commercial.
insurance.
Yeah.
But he obviously loves insurance. That's actually one of the only roles he says he would have played in a comedy. He watched the movies and he was like, damn, that role would have been awesome.
Okay, look, but you can't replace Ice Cube in this. You
No,
can't. And
you
even if
absolutely
it's
cannot.
J.K.
No.
Simmons, like, okay, great. That takes a whole thing down from the movie. That's like, look, Nick Offerman was incredible with who he played, but to have that counterbalance of Ice Cube being the chief, just so good. So, so throughout, there's a lot of scenes in this movie that, we didn't touch on because there's so many great ones. And one of them was when they had the house party at Jonah Hill's parents' house, Schmidt's parents' house.
Yep.
And they
parents go away. They throw the
Yep.
party to try to get like friends with everyone.
Yep. They're like, dude, where are we going to get beer? They're 21. They go buy beer. They're like, where are we going to get drugs? Then they go get it from the evidence locker. Hilarious. So during this scene, you would think like, oh, they have to act kind of drunk during the whole fight scene, everything like that. But they were actually, so Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum were actually drunk. They both admitted to it. So they actually drank during these scenes. And it can especially be seen when everyone's kind of running away from the house and Jonah Hill and Dave Franco are slowed up behind them. And when you see in the scene, so you see Dave Franco kind of punch him in the chest, Jonah Hill, a little bit when they're catching the death. And that's just because Franco was trying to sober Jonah Hill up a little bit.
Bring it back to reality quick.
Yeah, just bring him back to the take a little bit. But they were both going, I don't want to say pretty hard because I don't know how hard they were both really drinking, but to actually drink during these scenes and then for Jonah Hill and Dave Franco to have to keep doing that running scene, even if it's 3 times, like that's a good amount of running.
It's a lot of running.
Feeling it a little bit. Yeah. So those little punches that you see are actually Dave Franco. That's not Eric in the movie. That's Dave Franco just being like, come on, you got this.
Let's relax here.
Come on, man. You could do this.
I mean, I don't think I think that there's a level of professional that you can be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to get drunk for this one. I know that it's supposed to be fun. We're having a party scene. A lot of people, I don't think, would be able to get away with that. But if you're Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum and you know you can handle it, what are you going to do? Let's just let them do their thing because it makes it, I think that they even joked that they were going method for it, which also, if we're talking about it in realistically, I haven't heard anything, or at least to my knowledge, about Jonah Hill or Channing Tatum having a drinking problem or anything. But
no,
if this story comes out and then, 3 years later they end up in rehab, it's like, oh, that's an upsetting story.
Yeah, I guess they were going method too much. But they pulled it off
had a good
well.
time.
The scene was, I feel like, way more awesome because they were actually drinking.
There is something about it that it seems, even if you didn't know that they were drunk, there's a certain type of acting. Some people are really good at acting drunk because a lot of people have gotten drunk. They just know how to do it. But in terms of just genuine, like that's how they were at the time. Some things you can't fake.
And it's more genuine. That's why, you like stunts when they're done for real. You like things in movies when they're done for real. So why not have people drink a little bit for real for the scene? Just enhances the whole film. Love it.
Yeah.
Not promoting alcoholism in any sense, but you know what? If it's for a scene, got to do it. Do your thing. Do your thing.
Sometimes you got
Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, do your thing. So also a weird thing with some characters. So Johnny Depp was obviously in this movie for a little bit, as you saw at the sorry, spoiler, but Johnny Depp was in this movie. We mentioned it a little bit before.
Our whole podcast is spoilers.
Oh no.
This movie came out a long time ago.
We're assuming that you've seen this movie. If you haven't, Johnny Depp's in it. It's your job to figure out where. So in the original Johnny
It's really not a
21
big
Jump
deal
Street,
if you didn't know that either.
no, and not at all. It's not gonna ruin your time. In
No.
the original 21 Jump Street and for the movie, so Johnny Depp really wanted his character to eat peanut butter as an ongoing joke, just constantly be eating peanut butter. And in the show, that didn't work out, but the directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, were more than happy to let his character just constantly be eating peanut butter in every scene he was in. And they didn't lie. He's legitimately eating peanut butter in every single scene that he's in.
Everyone.
I was thinking that it was weird when he was first doing it. Like when you
Yeah.
watch the movie a couple of times, you kind of realize like he's got peanut butter in his hand every single time.
Well, also the first time we see him is when they're doing that drug bust in the park, and
Yeah.
in a park around all your motorcycle buddies, like that's not a common place to be eating peanut butter out of a jar. I could
Out
make
of
a
a
pretty
jar.
long list before I would put that in there.
It was a silver spoon too. Like he brought his own silverware.
He brought his own. It could have been like a white gold plated something. I mean, it would look like
Yeah.
it might have been a nice spoon.
It was a real spoon. It's not like he was going to the nearest taco stand and getting a plastic spoon. This dude was coming prepared.
Johnny Depp's doing BYOS out in the park. I mean, ridiculous.
And so if you were one of the people who didn't recognize Johnny Depp at first eating his peanut butter in the back of it, you were not alone. So Johnny Depp was, I couldn't tell at first. I had no idea who this dude eating peanut butter was. I thought it was a hilarious throwaway of some guy just standing in the back eating peanut butter.
Yeah,
But
why not eat peanut butter?
because you really couldn't recognize him so much on screen, it was true in person as well. And Brie Larson in the movie and on set didn't recognize him at all. Like until the last day of filming, when he came up to her and said, "Hi, I'm Johnny," and she was like, "Oh my God, it's Johnny Depp." She had no idea.
To be, that you're in a lot of makeup, especially someone as recognizable as Johnny Depp is. If you have to tell a fellow actor / actress, like, "Hey, by the way, I'm Johnny," like Johnny Depp,
Johnny from the coffee shop, like Johnny who? Hi, I'm Johnny. Because he's wearing that prosthetic nose and everything too.
Yeah. He's Captain Jack Sparrow, for God's sakes.
He's got I feel like one of the most recognizable voices though. So if he comes up, he's like, "Hi, I'm Johnny." You're like, "Oh, hi."
Can it wait one more time?
Nope, not doing it again.
Okay. Are you
You're
sure?
gonna have to. Nope. Think I'm good.
All right, we'll move on to the next one then.
Think I'm good on that one.
This movie actually was very rigorous in terms of auditioning, which is how they got this cast and how everyone was so good. So in the original 21 Jump Street, well, the original movie of 21 Jump Street, I'm about to mention two characters that were in both. They went through the audition process. So Rob Riggle said that he had to audition 4 times. So more specifically, he had to do 2 table reads and 2 auditions. And Dave Franco said that he actually had to around like 6 or 7 times. So they had to go through the ringer trying to get these parts. And, Dave Franco isn't as huge of an actor. I mean, Rob Riggle at the time, maybe not either, but very established.
Yeah.
And the way that Dave Franco, because obviously Dave Franco's part is arguably bigger, if you want to look at the actual story, maybe Rob Riggle is more important. But in terms of casting, you probably want to get Dave Franco's exactly right. So the reason that he got picked for the most part was because Jonah Hill basically was going through all these auditions, and he saw Dave Franco these 6 or 7 times and realized every single time he was just trying to get him to think he was cool. Not Dave Franco was trying to get Jonah Hill to think he was cool. Jonah Hill was like, got a little nervous whenever Dave Franco was around and was trying to get him to think that he was cool so he would join the movie, which is crazy if you think about, like, if you are auditioning 6 or 7 times, you got to think he's cool at that point, right?
But imagine knowing, like, hearing at the end, because I think Jonah Hill was in an interview saying, like, I was trying to impress him. It was just kind of crazy. And imagine hearing auditioning for a part 7 times. Like, that'd be like interviewing for a job 7 times and then hearing from the interviewer afterwards, like, I was just trying to impress this guy.
Yeah, like,
I'd
oh, I
be
was
like, then
nervous. I was nervous
why'd
whenever you
you
were talking.
invite me 7 times?
Yeah, couldn't we have done this once?
Yeah, once or twice. This was 7.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a cool story though, where it's like, even though Jonah's kind of in the not the director's chair, but he's kind of heading up this casting venture, and they're going back and forth with lines. It's still him in a seat going like, I gotta make this dude laugh. Like, I gotta make this guy think I'm super cool. And that really played into the part well, because that's really Jonah's whole character in the movie, is trying to make this kid think he's cool.
Yeah, it's so important to his character. So and I think that's the other reason. It's not just like, oh, I like him and I think he's talented, so I want him to, this is so important for Jonah Hill's character to want to impress Dave Franco's character. So it's funny how that kind of works out in real life and then makes its way to the screen. But in terms of 21 Jump Street, I think maybe let's go real quick through a last exclusive, and then let's move on to 22.
All right, this last one I just thought was hilarious. So just gonna throw it in because Jonah Hill actually, that the look he had in the movie was the real look that he had in high school, because he wanted to look like Eminem. So in high school, he had the bleached hair and everything. Yeah, he wanted to look like Eminem. And then as he's getting his hair dyed in a clip, like behind the scenes clip, he starts rapping Eminem. I just thought that was hilarious, where you see it in the movie, you're like, oh my God, why would he do that to his hair? And you find out he really did it in real life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's so funny too, is like, now this is something I realized when, flying between New York and LA, you see the new hairstyles all the time. So this one is, you got the dark hair all the way up, and then you got the hair like up here that's
frosted
bleached.
Tips.
No, not frosted. It's like very extreme frosted tip. It's like if the Backstreet Boys are in sync when they were doing their frosted tips, it's like if they were just like, fuck it, we're doing the whole hair. Like, why not?
You have a black and white cookie on your head.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's cool now, though. That's cool.
I don't understand.
If you're listening to us from TikTok, I actually think it's cool.
It's really sick, dude. You're killing it.
You look good. You look better than me.
Kevin is calling out that one person that he saw in the flight.
Yes,
in the last few years.
It was. So I was like, oh yeah, you're definitely flying to LAX, aren't you? So was I.
So is it? Yeah,
he's just not balding yet like I am. Hey, Roman, sponsor the pod.
Give Kev a year. He'll be wearing one of those blonde wigs.
Yeah. I'm gonna shave here. I'm gonna have to dye here to here black, and then let's move on here.
Let's hit it.
Let's get to 22 Jump Street. So
22.
We mentioned it before. 22 Jump Street is, I think, a lot of people would consider it one of the only successful sequels, right?
Yeah, it's
comedy.
I think people are split on Borat 2. People are split on a lot of sequels. I think this one is one that we can hang our hat on and say they did it right. This is one where if you're gonna cite a comedy sequel, you go here and you say, yeah, it can be done. It can
be done. Yes. And so that's the thing, is that the director, Phil Lord, was basically quoted saying, look, it's really hard to get comedy sequels right. And they wanted to take a different approach to 22 Jump Street as they did with 21, even though there were so many jokes about how it was just the same exact thing all the time. So what they wanted to explore with this movie was we established the relationship in 21 Jump Street. We know it's solid. It was very good, but they thought it was interesting to see where it would go. So basically, you have this huge breakthrough and you have this cathartic experience together, but how do you sustain the relationship from there? So it's basically about keeping a relationship alive, which I think you can definitely see, although it's not in your face in a corny way. Like if there's anything that directly calls it out, it calls it out for the comedy of it.
Exactly. And they do a good job of, actually showing it happening while at the same time just, poking fun at it the whole way. I think that was really good. I mean, they didn't really take the sequel route of just doing Infiltrate the dealers, find the suppliers part 2, which is what it kind of leads into that. You kind of expect
they
that
kinda,
a little bit because they play it up. They play it up right at the beginning. It's just Ice Cube saying, infiltrate the dealers, find the suppliers, do it, do it, do it. But they really take this deeper look at this friendship we've seen grow, just devolving, and then how we're going to build this back up. And that happens in real life too. When you go away to school, people that you were really close with, you can drift away from them and everything. It's a real life scenario.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But so it's really obviously both of these movies in reality are buddy movies, which are great. I mean, I enjoy them at least. Something that I wanted to ask you about was, did you think that you could see their chemistry increase like during this movie? Do you think they had better chemistry the second time around?
I think that they did, both on screen and off screen. And I think that actually contributes a little bit to the success of the first movie and kind of them being able to work together better off screen, like between takes and everything. You can kind of see their relationship grow, whether it was off screen and in the interviews and everything, or on screen, them working together. I mean, the jokes I feel like hit more than the first one when they're just talking between those two, or the things you kind of knew were improv hit a little bit harder because they're working way better with one another. So I think their chemistry on screen was a lot better in the second one. Not to say that the first one wasn't great. I think more so Channing Tatum needed to get more comfortable with being in this setting of like
a true comedic actor. Like we're just doing comedy here. Yeah. So that's something I think I would definitely agree with. I think I watched interviews and all this stuff. They definitely got to be better friends. Yeah. And although Channing Tatum was hilarious just in both movies, there is a certain type of comfort that you can see here. And like he does, I feel like, not step it up because that would be dissing him in the first one. But I think it's just it's a level of comfort that it's definitely evident.
Well, I think the first one was his real first comedy movie, right? So going into that, it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure, right? I mean, I can see that being, if you're going from certain movies into a direct comedy, it's like, all right, how does this work? What am I supposed to do? What's right? What's wrong? The second one definitely, like you said, evolved into it. I also love in this movie not only their chemistry with each other, but like Ice Cube was in it a ton more, and bringing him into that and their chemistry, the three of them, like them working as a trio, whether it was like after, Jonah Hill slept with Ice Cube's daughter or things like that, where they're locked in a scene together for much longer than the first one. Cause Ice Cube didn't get that much play in the first one. I mean, he was impactful, but he got maybe 5 minutes. This one, they stepped it up and they were like, we need him. We need him in this to interact with these guys.
And I think it's almost because you lose a lot of the boss direct report role because they were successful in like their mission in the first movie. So they get credit with Ice Cube. So then they're allowed to have more of like a buddy relationship.
Literally got one arrest. Like, I love how this movie starts where they're like, we're kings of the town now. They have the gold pistols and the huge guns when they literally got one arrest. Like, let's be real here. They brought down the high school drug ring, but they got one arrest. And now they're the hot shots of the city.
That's what's funny too, is that they're those two girls that were constantly poking fun at them, being like, oh, we already took down this sting and this sting, which by the way were actually nods to the original TV series. They referenced that directly, but they said that they already took down 2, and then then these guys are huge heroes for doing like 1,
essentially for doing their job very poorly at the start. They got expelled, and they got expelled from school.
Yeah. And then doing the bare minimum and making 1 arrest.
Yeah. Fighting at the school play in front of everybody. If that's not going to give it away enough. I mean, but I do think that this movie is great at being way more self-aware too. I think the first one was very self-aware in itself, but this one takes it to another level because it even calls out in the start. It's like, what do you think doubling the budget is going to bring double the success? Like, who would think that? Basically making fun of the studio. They call out the meet cute. They have a whole like 30-second interaction between Channing Tatum and Zook, who's just going off. They're like, oh, Q-tip in my meat cute. Oh, it's a meet cute. And just that whole
And then
thing.
they proceeded to get the most times meet cute has ever been said in a certain time span.
Yeah.
That's a Guinness Book of World Record thing.
Absolutely.
Like they said meet cute 30 times in 30 seconds, I think.
Yeah. Usually you're not supposed to say it. So this was hilarious for them even just saying it and then coming up with the like who comes up with him dropping a Q-tip in the sandwich and being like, "Oh, it's a you got your Q-tip in my meat. Oh, it's a meat cute. Oh, it's a meat cute."
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. And then Jimmy Tatro, who we haven't mentioned yet, who comes in and has the red herring tattoo where it's literally just a plot device in a story of being a distraction.
Yep. It's all very it's in your face, but not in a corny way. Is the best way I can put it. Like it's not like it's nuanced at all because it's not supposed to be. It's like, hey, here this is, we get it. We're making fun of this. At the same time, though, I do have this weird thing with movies that I don't know if there really is a good way to do it. I think if you're gonna do it, call it out, say that you're doing it, and let's move on. But I think that there is a thing that people could be like, they're kind of like, acting high and mighty, saying, "Oh, this is what sequels do." Well, you are doing that exact thing. It's just going well.
Yeah, you're doing that thing and you're calling it out to our faces. I do think that
which is better, which is no doubt better.
No, absolutely. I think that that's a good thing that they did. And I think that's why this movie holds up as a sequel is just because they're blatantly being like, we know what we're doing. And you now know what we're doing. And you're still going to like it. And we're all like, yeah, we are. Because they distract you from them doing that so well in that you're laughing your ass off. And then they throw that stuff in there, that little like the meet cute, they throw the red herring, they throw like, oh, who would throw all this movie? Like they throw that all in there and then distract you in the next scene or whatever it is with something that's absolutely hilarious. So you actually validate the movie through that, even if they're throwing it in your face constantly.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I do think that like there really is only one way to do it if you're going to do it, and it's to call it out.
Yeah,
just straight up call it out. And it's done well because I just go into sequels for comedies with the lowest expectations. And sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised. I think this one, I was blown away because it actually is a good movie. Normally I go in with low expectations. So they reach around average and I'm happy. This one, it's good. It's funny. It's a very good movie. Yeah. And I would say, I think a lot of people would probably hold the sentiment that they just, you weren't expecting much. I don't think I was expecting this to be as good as it was.
Yeah, and that might lift it up a little bit, but at the time when you're seeing it, I definitely agree that you're coming in, you're like, oh, what are they going to do here? Like, is this going to destroy the first one? And that's what, happened for me I said it in previous episodes. I'll say it again, like for The Hangover, that the second and third one really just destroyed the first one for me. And I was hoping that
by the time the third one rolls around, like
it's over. Yeah. It's just like, stop it.
It's possible for a sequel, just a 1-2 to be good. And this is the prime example, but like The Hangover, by the time the third one rolls around, to expect absolutely nothing out of the third one. Nothing.
Yeah, and then this movie took away any semblance of hope for a 23 Jump Street with the end credit scene, which, we can talk about now, or we can touch on it a little, but I think the end credit was incredible.
Well, go through it now.
Let's go through it now. All right, so the end credits, if you haven't watched the movie, highly recommend watching the entirety of the end credits, because for some movies, it's just kind of a drag, blah, blah, blah. This one, it actually goes through, I believe it's 21 different sequels. 21 different sequels in order for from 23 to 43 of the new jump streets that happened subsequently after the second one. And it's just Ice Cube listing off like the 23rd one. He's like, you guys are going to medical school. And then it shows a little snippet of that in the title. And then foreign exchange students, semester at sea, art school, culinary school with Bill Hader, veterinary school, Sunday school, flight academy, ninja academy, fireman school, generations, return of ghosts.
And then a whole lot of others.
Exactly. I could go on and on because they're all hilarious, but I would definitely recommend watching. Do you have a quick top 2 of those?
I mean, it's so lame. Well, but just because like the other ones weren't developed as much, but the top 2 I got to give to the cameos. You know, the Seth Rogen one was far and away the most thought out one. It was like calling out people just replacing actors. And then when Jonah Hill comes back and he's like, what contract dispute? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That was so Seth Rogen is a stand-in in one, which is hilarious. That's definitely my favorite one. And then you throw Bill Hader in anything, you got my stamp of approval. Give me culinary school.
Yeah. All right. So for me, number 1 and number 2, I mean, you can't go wrong with the Seth Rogen and Bill Hader. But I'm going to throw the Seth Rogen one, or I'm going to throw the Bill Hader one at number 3, even though I love Bill Hader. I'm going to go at number 2 is The Return of Ghost, just because it's 12 movies later and it makes no sense that he's just
absolutely
now
no sense
washing up on the shore.
Well, I think that's like, I think that's a call out to some movies, like these huge franchises, when they make all this crap. And then at a certain point, they're like, oh, we have this name that's worth a lot of money still. Let's just go back to whatever worked before.
Exactly.
I think that's what it's calling out.
They weren't sure he died, right? Like they didn't see him. And they're like, yeah, we don't know for sure. They're like, bring him back, recast if you have to. And that's what it was. And that's what they're making fun of. And I freaking loved it.
Well, I think that they showed him walking out of the ocean.
Yeah,
actually.
they showed him burned up walking out of the ocean, which is hilarious. Just bringing him back after 12 movies, 12 fake movies, but bringing him right back. That was great.
We need the return. We need
We needed the return of Ghost. I mean, what did you think? They were actually just going to kill him off? Seriously? No, they weren't going to do that.
Of course not. Come on.
Let's run into some insights now.
Or let's get into facts, right? So, facts for this movie, 22 Jump Street. We didn't even mention her yet, actually. But she's one of the funniest characters in the movie. No doubt about it. Jillian Bell. So she was cast, and she's the roommate of Schmidt's,
Maya.
Jonah Hill's.
Maya.
Yeah, Maya. And so her role, Jonah Hill, who wrote the movie in part, actually admittedly said that her role was underwritten. He was like, we didn't really give her much, so she just had to improv a lot. And people have said, like, the director, and I think Channing Tatum actually was the one that said she is the only one that could step up to Jonah Hill and kind of give him like a run for his money, to like make him take a step back. So she would just come up with all this great stuff, and just for an underwritten role, outperform anything that they could have thought of.
Yeah, and she does it so well. I mean, let's just think about, so basically the initial fight scene too, one of those instances where she kind of just improv and everything was when Jonah Hill and her were fighting in the hotel room. And in a single take, basically, she moves in for a kiss when they're fighting. And during that scene, Jonah Hill almost laughed and kind of looked over at the directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who were just standing by kind of filming. And he looks over out of frame at them to almost ask, like, what's going on? And it took them a few more times when they were she was like leaning in and doing that whole bit. And if you watch, you see he kind of still looks out of frame, because that's all improv on her part. And they just kept it rolling. They just kept it going in one take.
Yeah. The whole kissing thing during the middle, that makes that fight scene so much funnier.
And she doesn't stop. It's like, and then she hops on top of him and is like, oh, so we're going to have sex now? He goes, no, what do you mean?
That's
so
like,
good.
that's when we're talking about working the humor into those action scenes.
Yeah. She took it and just ran with it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
making something out of nothing if I've ever seen it.
No doubt. Yeah.
So basically, let's move on to another one. And
Sure. Yeah.
so Kurt Russell, we all know Kurt Russell. His son is Wyatt Russell.
I do.
Yeah. You know Kurt Russell? You've heard of him before?
Might know Wyatt Russell.
So-
I'm honestly not sure.
Wyatt Russell plays Zook in this movie. That's his son.
Oh, okay.
And so Zook,
I do know
Wyatt Russell, essentially turned down a role in the Hunger Games sequel to star in this movie. I think it was a good one. I think that was a good choice. Basically,
All right. So you're not big on the Hunger Games movies?
not to say that I'm not big on the Hunger Games movies. I just think if you're going to go sequel, more long-standing, how many times have you watched the Hunger Games sequel recently?
Not many times.
How many times do you
Don't say
think
that.
about the Hunger Games sequel recently?
Every day.
How many
I
times?
always think about how I want to watch it, but I just didn't watch it.
How many times in your day-to-day life do you say infiltrate the dealers, find the suppliers? Because I say it every day.
3 times a day.
At least. So I think that was a
Yeah.
big mistake. So that was one of those kind of weird, casting things that happens in all movies. Another one that they kind of just tossed in there was, so in 2013, this movie 22 came out in 2014. In 2013, Channing Tatum was in the movie White House Down. In 2014, in this movie, he references, like, oh, let's just go work in the Secret Service. And that's basically referencing the movie before this, so when he actually did work in the Secret Service in White House Down. So that was just like a cool little throwaway thing. And another like cool little throwaway thing that they did in this movie too, another Channing Tatum thing, is basically he was not faking his football ability in this movie per se, because in the movie, Janko, who Channing Tatum plays, gets offered a football scholarship to a D1 school. In real life, Channing Tatum got offered a football scholarship to a university in West Virginia, not the University of West Virginia, but to a school in West Virginia. He actually didn't have the best time playing there and kind of took a different route, which is why he ended up in this movie long term. But that's a cool little thing that we saw, the parallel where both his character and he in real life got a football scholarship. It's not often that you can say that.
Yeah, he did a bunch of his own stunts. Like, I mean, obviously in this movie, his character increases all the physical activity a lot. So you have him doing all this parkour stuff out of nowhere, which really wasn't too present in the first movie.
Yeah.
But he's doing all of his own stunts. He's playing football,
Mhm.
and that's a huge contrast to Jonah Hill, because Jonah Hill actually never played football before. So it was the first time in his life he wore pads, because, if you've never played football, you don't really have a reason to be wearing pads.
Why would you ever?
So
wear pads on?
I'm not going to lie. If you did and you've worn pads, it's pretty odd.
Yeah. I can't see just throwing on pads and calling it a day. Just like, I've always wanted to see what these felt like,
Some like weird role playing thing, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, or for Halloween. But why would you go through the trouble of buying actual pads for a Halloween costume? That seems a bit excessive.
That's where I went. So never a big Halloween guy, by the way. Even when I was a kid, when I was a football player, you just throw on the jersey. You're just going jersey.
You were never really.
Did I ever put on pads for Halloween?
No, I'm saying you weren't a big Halloween guy.
Back in the day, I bet I was. Like, I remember, you see kids of yours, like yourself as a child.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I have a horrible memory, so maybe I was super into it. But looking back, I'm like, I bet I did like it. But I'm saying, like, my recent memory.
Yeah, I was the same way. Kind of just threw on the jerseys that I had. They were like, "What are you?" I'm like, "I'm a sports player." They were like, "That's your jersey. You're not really dressing up as anything. You just came from
They
practice."
said to me, "Who are you?" And I was like, "I'm Brian Westbrook." And they're like, "No, the fuck you're not."
Ryan Westbrook. Boy,
I'm Donovan McNabb.
if you
Oh,
don't
you
get off,
puked in the huddle?
if you don't get off my fucking porch right now, swear to God.
Get out of
So
here, Brian Westbrook.
so Brian Westbrook, speaking, of football, there's a lot of injuries in football. There could have been a lot of injuries in this movie, but one of them really wasn't planned. And it's really a throwaway kind of injury, but not really an injury, but
Yeah.
something they didn't really know about. So in the movie with Jonah Hill sitting on the bleachers at the stadium and everybody's walking out, there was a guy who tries to scoot past him. And the guy essentially just says his one line in the movie, and just thinking about it makes me laugh because it's right up my alley. The guy just scooting by him and walks by, and he goes, "Son, you got to stand up. I got a broken ankle. I can't get by you."
In the most just like fat guy away.
"Son, I can't get up there. I got a broken ankle. You got to stand up." And basically that wasn't planned. So Jonah Hill turns and just asks what the hell was going on to the filmmakers if they were messing with him. But in an interview afterwards, he basically said he was just going to stay in the scene and see what happens. But we got some gold because, that's still one of the funniest parts that I can think of. It's this random guy walking, especially now knowing the backstory of this random guy walking by and being like, "Son, you got to stand up. I can't get up there."
I got a broken ankle. Yeah. That seems like we mentioned Tom Segura before. For some reason, that just rings true to like your mom's house with me. Like I don't know why. That guy seems like he belongs on your mom's house.
Hello, my queen's above 18.
God. All right. This next fact is about writing. So there's a line that made it in, and there was a line that made it into the behind the scenes or the deleted scenes, wherever we watched it.
Yeah.
The line was that, in the theatrical script, we see it looks like a cube of ice. They're talking about the upgraded 22 Jump Street, this whole thing. It looks so high tech, glass walls. It looks like a cube of ice because Ice Cube's in it.
Yeah.
I don't like that line. I thought that was the only corny line of the entire movie. Honestly, like I specifically on my rewatch, I was like, that sucks. But what it started as was it looks like a block of frozen water, but a lot of people just weren't getting it. Like it was supposed to be nuanced to be like, oh, this is Ice Cube.
It's
like,
an ice cube.
Ice Cube's in it. It looks like a block of frozen water. But then they went the super direct route, which I don't criticize anything too often, but I would have liked to see that block of water thing. But I get if it doesn't, you kind of need to know the backstory. Like maybe when I was reading it in the terms of this is the fact about it, it's supposed to be Ice Cube. This is why it's funny. It's easy for me. But during the movie, it might not have been obvious.
I thought about that when I was watching it. And the issue for me when I was watching it is during that scene, it's not direct. Like either that line was put in post and it's kind of either showing the office and it doesn't really show Ice Cube after until like a few seconds later, or it's showing them, it doesn't show the office. For me, it was like it needed that directness because of the way it was shot. Was kind of like, I don't think it was hitting because there wasn't that direct kind of like, oh my God, yeah. It didn't give it that kind of enough, like, here's Ice Cube. Oh, it's a frozen block of water. From like this context and understanding it, I'm like, yeah, of course, who wouldn't get that? But at the time, if it's like a 2-second sequence, it's going right through. And then you're focused on the next kind of thing, Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I would agree. So, yeah, I mean, like, you got to go direct with a lot of things. Just wanted to push back there, Pretty much all we do is praise these movies because they deserve it. But,
I get it. I mean, that line, I can see why it wouldn't hit, but I can see also how it would if it was done well. I think that they
Yeah.
went direct with a ton of things in this movie, just throwing it in your face, and that was an example.
It fits the script.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it fit
yeah,
really
it
well.
fits it.
They
Yeah.
weren't gonna go these comprehensive jokes like right away, and then toss you like in between them. Like, here's one you're not gonna get ever, and here's one you will.
Yeah, here's one you have to think about for a while. No,
Yeah,
that's
don't
not
listen
what
to
we're
anything
doing
that
here.
happens in the next scene. Just keep thinking about it. You'll get it. Don't worry.
Keep thinking.
It's on your mind.
You were looking stuff up though, and you saw that there were a few connections between the movies.
Yeah.
You want to run through those quick, and then we'll get
So
into our favorite section.
basically, with these sequels, watching them back and forth, watching 21 and then 22, there's a lot more things that you pick up on, because usually you don't watch a sequel in the same weekend or the same night. So one of the connections that you pick up on and that I saw was, the scene where Channing Tatum is tripping on HFS in the first one, and he's writing on the science board. He thinks he's just figured out all this shit that Einstein couldn't and everything. And he yells out, "Fuck you, science," and then throws it down and cuts to the board. It's just all fours, just like a million fours. Whole lot of fours. So in the scene at the end of 22 Jump Street, when Channing Tatum's trying to get back at Jonah Hill by shooting him in the arm, because he's now been shot twice because of Jonah Hill. Yeah. So he's trying to get back at him, shooting him in the arm. In the background on the wall, you can see the four that he was. It's a tribute to him writing fours all over that board. There's just a four in the background. So that was a pretty cool little connection, like a little tossed in. It's a graffiti little four, but it's a nice toss into the other movie. And then we don't see throughout the movies another connection. Is that their first names are never said ever. Like, we find out at one point, apparently, that their names are Morton and Greg. So Schmidt is Morton Schmidt and Janko is Greg Janko. But throughout both of them, if you can recall, do you ever remember hearing one first name that wasn't Doug or Brad ever? They did that.
No, and I think it makes it a lot easier that I think it makes it a lot easier that, like, if you're thinking about proportion of names that they're called, their aliases or like their undercover names are what's said most,
Yeah. I do like the connection too of like keeping Rob Riggle and Dave Franco in it too, when they bring him to the jail, that whole sequence and everything. But there's just a few little things that you pick up on when you're watching, cool little tips of the cap to people who saw the first one and then watch the second one. So if you're going to watch these two, I think you're going to notice a lot of similarities, not only in like the style of film and everything, but you'll pick on a little cool, like, tips of the cap to the first one.
No, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They're definitely very linked. And I think that they're the most fun that you have with it, and knowing that it's a sequel and everything, is that they call it out so much in the second movie.
Yeah.
That was 22 Jump Street. Let's move on to our favorites. So we're grouping both of the movies in so first of all, do you specifically have a favorite of the two? Do you prefer one over the other?
It's so tough because they're both so good.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm going to go with 22, which is tough.
Okay.
I'm going 22 because I like that I think there was, more things for me that hit in this movie. I like that that it played off the first one a lot better than a lot of sequels do. I may be saying this just because I had low expectations for the sequel and that it far surpassed them. But I mean,
it's all about how you watch it. Yeah.
Both of them are incredible. I think, if I'm going to rewatch one, I think it's going to be the second, 22.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what? That's funny thinking about it that way. Because rewatch, what I think about 22 is I think it's more fun. I think it's just more fun of a watch because they're in college and there are these party scenes. And even if you're not resonating like, oh, that'd be sick to party. It's a fun scene. You have the fun music. You have this fast-paced thing going on. 21 Jump Street, I think, is probably my favorite. Like, when I think of scenes and I think of lines, I think of 21. I think, it is funny thinking about the rewatch because I almost agree with you there. I think if I were to rewatch them, I might be more inclined to rewatch 22. But if I'm talking about my favorite, I think I say 21 almost because it is like the original, even though it has source material, I almost consider like 22 the source material, or 21 the source material of 22.
I agree with that. I don't know. It's something about 22 does it for me that I just love that movie.
Yeah.
Not to say that the first one's far behind. I think 21 is great in its own right, and I'll gladly watch it. But I think if we're comparing the two, it's a slight win for 22.
That's fair. Yeah.
Who do you think will go right into characters from our favorite movie? We're going favorites here. Who is your favorite character from the two movies?
I think it's easy for me. Well, not too easy, because we talked about this before. I know who yours is. I am going Ice Cube. Yeah. I think in terms of his lines alone, like the amount of funny lines that he says are just ridiculous. And there is one other person, and you can talk about yours now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going Rob Riggle, 100%.
Yeah, Riggle deserves to be mentioned.
Riggle. His character just goes through so much, and I feel so bad.
He goes through a lot. Yeah,
but also he's
so that's the funny
scumbag.
thing too is, with Ice Cube you have more to go off of just because he's fully in both movies, and you could say that Riggle basically has like a cameo in the second one, from jail with Dave Franco. But he is so funny in this. Like both characters, I think, are. Sure, they're well written and they have interesting stories and all that nonsense, but their lines alone, just the way that they deliver them, both of them, because they're both just absolute rock stars comedically.
Oh yeah,
they both deserve it.
Riggle, I think, was the guy who just, Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, I remember hearing in interviews, they were just like, we watched him go and just took his lead and just went from there. And especially in the jail scene in 22, which, we'll mention in a second, but Channing Tatum was like, you can see me. And there's points where I'm not acting. It's just me, Channing, watching Rob Riggle just in awe of what he's about to say or where he's going to spin this, which is awesome.
Yeah. Like when he's talking about him being Dave Franco's bitch. Speaking of that, let's go right into scenes, because out of both movies, I think that's my favorite scene. It's just Rob Riggle at the top of his game talking about how he's saying that Dave Franco owns him, and Dave Franco does not want any part of him. Just a ridiculous concept. That's so funny throughout.
That whole Berkeley thing is running through both movies.
The funniest thing to me in that is, so it's all the over the top stuff, like you own this ass, like all that. That's funny. But something that cracks me up is when he's doing the impression of Schmidt, and then he's like, "Hey, close your eyes." She does this awful, just weird impression. He's like, Schmidt being a bitch. Both of them are fantastic in that scene. But I mean, Riggle is just unreal.
Eric was deep in this last night. Ain't that right, Eric? He's like, "This is supposed to be
you own this ass."
I'm Eric's bitch now. That was so good. There's so many things. I can imagine that scene going for 3 hours during filming with them just going back and forth.
Oh yeah.
I love that they threw that in there. For me, my favorite scene was probably when it also involves Rob Riggle a decent amount. And it's when they were tripping first off in 21 on HFS in the high school, when they first of all try to like finger each other's throats to try and get it out and throw it up.
Yeah.
And then the janitor just comes out of nowhere and is standing in the background. And then they go out, they're like putting their tongue out, and Rob Riggle's like, I don't like that. Put your tongue back.
Yeah. And then he looks at Channing Tatum, he's like, I like that. that.
I mean, from that, it's a long scene, but Jonah Hill then ruins the track meet and starts dancing with the baton and everything. It's just so
it's not
good.
A penis.
It's not. Stop making it look like a penis. Come on.
Yeah. I honestly think that scene alone is why I think of 21 as my favorite of the two. Yeah. Because if I think of influential, just favorite scenes of when I was the perfect age to like comedy movies, is like exactly like this, or not the perfect age, when I first was able to really watch them and really enjoy them, that scene was just hilarious to me. Like that scene's an all timer with the eyebrows coming down into the mouth and then the ice cream cone and everything. Yeah.
Yep. That was so good. I think that is one of the best scenes in both movies. I mean, it is my best scene in both movies, but I think it stands out for memory's sake. Like you were saying, if you're thinking 21, you're thinking of that scene.
So. Yeah. That's so I took Ice Cube in the favorites. I think you said you might actually think it's like yours too. You took that scene. That's actually probably my favorite scene, but I do like the jail scene in 22 as well. Moving on to lines though, my lines both come from Ice Cube. So my lines are, my favorite lines in both of them. I think this one is a standout for probably everyone that watches both of these movies.
Yeah.
And it's when Jonah Hill is in 21 Jump Street, the building, which is a Korean church. He's praying and he's trying to make sure things go well. And Ice Cube just walks out. First, actually, Channing Tatum starts laughing at him. He's there. He starts laughing. And then Ice Cube just comes out. Stop fucking with Korean Jesus. He doesn't have time for your problems. He's busy dealing with Korean shit.
It's so good.
The way he did, just so angry, yelling, and just stop fucking with Korean Jesus. He doesn't have time for your problems. He's busy dealing with Korean shit.
He's busy dealing with Korean shit.
That's the line, but the way Ice Cube does it, just unreal. Best line in both movies. To me, it's not that close.
No, you're right. I think that is one of the top ones because it's just hilarious in itself. Just you knew something was going to happen with Korean Jesus, and of course it did. And I mean, I'm so happy it did. For me, one of my first ones, one of my top lines is actually from someone we haven't mentioned yet. It's Chris Parnell.
Oh yeah, Sincerely Unqualified Cinematic Universe.
Yep, he's in it. And Hot Rod, just so good in both of them. I mean, his lines, his delivery is unlike any other. And when he's the drama teacher giving the speech in the first one, he was saying, when I was a young actor starting out in New York State, Albany to be exact.
That cracked me up so hard. And then something that I'm not sure if you came across, but a little Inexclusive exclusive here is that when they did the line, when I was doing cocaine with Willie Nelson's horse, that wasn't supposed to be that line. It was actually supposed to be when I was doing cocaine with Whitney Houston's niece. But Whitney Houston recently died, so they retconned it, and then they put in doing cocaine with Willie Nelson's horse. But New York State, Albany to be exact. It's so funny.
Just the anecdotes he's throwing out in the background are so great.
Yeah, I think that line is it's particularly funny because even if he was in New York, if he was a successful actor, obviously he wouldn't be teaching the class. So you knew he wasn't successful anyways.
Yep.
But there's just little pause and then state Albany is so good. Albany is just a funny city to throw in there as New York State.
Couldn't have been better.
No. So yeah, my next one again is Ice Cube in 21 Jump Street, which is why I said both favorite movie, favorite character. It's when they're early on in the introduction to what 21 Jump Street is. They're talking through it. He doesn't really know Channing Tatum or Jonah Hill that well, but obviously Jonah Hill likes asking the questions. He's kind of like the nerd. So Jonah Hill asks something and Ice Cube just goes, I wasn't talking to you, big titties. He calls Jonah Hill big titties, which cracked me up because I know that it had to be a prop, right?
Yeah.
They didn't write that. Ice Cube just thought of that.
He just thought of it, and that probably hurt Jonah Hill deep down. He's like, oh man, that wasn't even in the fucking script.
Yeah, Jonah lost 40 pounds for this. He wasn't the regular Jonah Hill. He was the skinny Jonah Hill.
Exactly. He was, Jonah Hill doing his thing, and Ice Cube just comes in hot. I love that when he was also like, I know we're just a couple of lady killers. And he's like, I'll address you when I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking to him. That was so good.
How good Channing Tatum is,
My last one is just a classic from Rob Riggle. and it's probably been said a ton after people watch this movie. It's during the play when there's the interruption and everything, and Rob Riggle is for some reason a heckler in the middle of the crowd. Something happens and he just goes, "Fuck you, Doug."
And then he looks at like one of the students. He's like, "No, not me." Like,
Yeah, he looks at, and then he says something else later on, and all the students are looking at him like, "We know it's you." He's like, "I don't know. I didn't even say."
he's cracking himself up. Yeah. His character is so funny, like with all that stuff, and then in the end, them directly calling it out, being like, was just Jonah Hill say, "You peaked in high school," to him or something. Like
Yeah.
those gym teachers.
So good. His character all around was the best for like heckling students and just calling kids out for shit and then being the drug dealer. I mean, all around great. I think the last one I'm going to go with, and it's an honorable mention for both movies.
Are we doing 3 now?
Well, no. This is just an honorable mention for both movies because it needs to be said. Needs to be said.
It does. It does.
From your favorite characters. It's just infiltrate the dealers, find the suppliers. That's it.
Find the suppliers.
The plot of the movie. Plot of both movies, essentially.
Plot of both movies. As they say in 22 frequently, it's the same exact movie.
Exactly. They're just doing it again with more budget. Who think that would go right?
Could double. 21 and 22 Jump Street, both fantastic movies, incredibly well acted, very well written.
Yep.
Powerhouses of the 2000s, 2010s,
2010s.
Anything else that you want to say? Any last words of wisdom for the people?
Just watch them if you haven't. They're so good. I think that these are the
worth the rewatch.
So worth the rewatch for both of them. I mean,
we say that every time, by the way.
No, I know, but I'm saying like these two, if you watch them with a group of people, you're gonna be dying laughing. I mean, there's nothing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Especially 21 or 22, you throw one on, you're gonna have a good time. That's all.
Absolutely, yeah. So we will see everyone next Tuesday. Until then, I'm Kevin.
I'm Winnie. And the Eagles are trash pandas.
We'll see you at the next episode. What about trash pandas?
The Eagles are the worst. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Infiltrate the dealers.